Welcome to Tech Talk. I'm your host, Nadirah Nazeer. For all the entrepreneur out there, you want to stay tuned to this episode. We have a special guest, Brian Crombie. He runs his own financial consultancy firm, Crombie Capital. He's currently acting Chief Financial Officer for the Ottawa Senators. Brian has an HBA from the Ivy School of Business, graduated with an MBA, and as a Baker Scholar from Harvard Business School, and is currently completing a doctorate BA at the International School of Management. His research topic is social capital in innovative cluster in times of financial duress. Brian speaks on this research in an inspirational, instructional talk, Community and the Power of Co. Brian, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You have quite a credentials, and I have to tell you, you've sent me your bio today, and it's so many accolades, and I had to shrink it down because I really wanted to get to our talk instead of me just telling a lot of people about you. But they can check out more about you at briancrombie.ca.
Yep.
So the topic that I wanted to discuss with you today is Entrepreneur 101.
Okay.
You have a lot of experience. For our viewers that's out there today that's just starting out in their business, what are the things that they should do based on your experience of setting up many businesses?
Well, a lot of things. I think one of the very first things one needs to do is figure out what your vision is. Because if you don't have a vision, then you're just going to fall into doing something just because you want to do something. And a lot of people get confused, well, what's the difference between a vision and a mission and a strategy? And the example I often use is war, and maybe this isn't good, but you know, if we're World War II and we're the Allied forces, the vision is to win the war and return democracy to Europe. The mission might be to attack the beaches of Normandy, and the strategy is we're going to do a combined air and sea assault. And the tactics we're going to be, you know, we're going to use certain crafts and certain parachutes and certain planes and certain number of people. And so that's, I think, the right thinking process is the vision is something long-term and big that gets you excited and gets you to think about where you're going to achieve something longer term. The mission is what you're going to do right now, win the battle.
Is it part of the whole planning process?
Oh, no question. No question. It's part of the planning process. But what I'm suggesting is you got to separate them out to the big things versus the long-term things. And then the strategies are exactly how you're going to go about achieving that. And there could be numerous different strategies to achieve one or a few missions to achieve in the long term the vision. So I think that's the number one most important thing is you got to set those things out. The second thing that I'd suggest for you is that what you really need is a unique product or selling proposition. You know, someone wrote a great book called Blue Ocean Strategy, and the analogy they used is don't compete in the red oceans where there's a whole bunch of people that are competing over small market shares. In other words, nothing unique and you're just a commodity and duplicate what everyone else is doing. I think what you need is a unique selling proposition, a unique idea, a unique something or other, because you want to be the best you know, TV talk host. You don't want to be a TV talk host like all the other TV talk hosts. So you got to be unique in some way. And then I think the third thing is you can't do it all on your own. Too many people think they can do it all on their own. You need a team, and staffing your team, putting the right people on the bus, to quote the book Good for Great, I think ends up being a critically important thing. And you mentioned that I'm doing my work on social capital. That capital, that social capital, that community that you build, that team that you build, is, I think, probably more important than almost anything else, because those are the people that are going to be there in the good times and, more importantly, in the bad times, that get you out of the bad times and steer you along the way and provide the resources to achieve success. And then I think after that, it's, you know, how do you make your team work together well? And so culture ends up being critically important, and ensuring that culture. And I think that, you know, a good culture will stem from the leader, but then a good culture is there whether the leader's there or not, and so therefore it's got to be passed down to the balance of the people. And one of the best descriptions I ever had about that was when your organization morphs from being an organization or a company and becomes a movement, then you've achieved huge success. So, you know, there'd be people that, you know, one of my employers in the past was Walt Disney. I think Disney is almost a movement now. It's, people want to go and see, Walt Disney, Disneyland, whatever, and it's something they dream of for several years and save money for it and plan for it and want to go. So it ends up becoming a very important thing. A athletic brand or a gymnasium or a Greenpeace or a political party or something like that become movements where you become personally invested in the success of that entity. And so if you can do that, that's very helpful.
So just to summarize it here, because I just want to kind of summarize it in just some very simple terms for the viewers. So there's planning, there's executions, there are resources, and there's also, before resources, you talk about market intelligence, the blue oceans versus the red oceans, right? So you need to have the market intelligence to make sure that whatever you're entering is something that the consumer want and maybe there's a lack of.
Yeah.
Right.
So in planning, I would separate that out into vision, mission, strategies, tactics. Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe the tactics is your execution thing, but too many people just plan. Don't just plan. Separate your planning into vision, mission, and strategies.
Strategy.
And on the market intelligence, yeah, you need to know it, but my point there is find something unique. Find something and decide to do something that's different than what everyone else is doing. Don't just get the intelligence and not change your strategy based on what that intelligence is. And on execution, you need a team to execute. And so I think that's different than just, I'm going to do it. Good to Great book said the most important thing is figuring out the right people on the bus.
That's right.
Jean Beliveau in an important speech said the most important thing is to pick your teammates.
The right resources in the right functions so that they understand what that vision is, what the strategy is, so that they can execute properly, right?
Question.
Communication is key. At the same time, a lot of people doesn't really do their risk management, right? What are the possible things that can happen, and how do I mitigate that?
Yeah, and so I think that's a different question and answer, and that is mishaps, things that go wrong, and what can you do to mitigate that? But that's a whole separate sort of list of things that I think are important to remember and do, because it's the old line about it doesn't matter how far you fall, it matters how high you bounce. So you're going to fall, you're going to have mishaps, you're going to have problems, and so therefore you got to make sure that you have both the attitude and the resources and the sustainability so that you can come back.
And you just said it, the attitude, because a lot of people, when they see failure, they just give up. But then you need to be able to know what your risks are, know what those mishaps are, and how do you mitigate that? How do you get around it? How do you rethink it? Right? Because a lot of the time, a lot of folks will just get demotivated by failures.
Yeah. So I tell a lot of people when I teach entrepreneurship that one of the keys when you're starting something new is always have 2 years of cash. If you've got 2 years of savings such that you can go without a salary so that you don't have to worry about something or other for 2 years, that's key. So having a little bit of kitty. And frankly, I think that's important in life, whether you're an entrepreneur or just a person. It's buzz off money that someone described it as. You got to be able to have a little bit of a kitty so that if someone really upsets you and you get into a bad problem and you want to walk away, you can say buzz off and you're out of here.
So Brian, realistically, the people out there with great vision that may not have a lot of cash, so what's your advice for them? How do they raise capital, or is there any funding from government for new entrepreneurs that they can reach for?
Sure, there's lots of funding. I think that it's challenging to get a lot of that funding, and if you're only reliant on government grants, it's going to end up being a problem. And so therefore, what you got to do is you got to reach out to friends and family. And so, I teach a course on how to raise money, and there's a whole process on how you raise money, and a lot of people try to skip right to going to the institutional round or going public. Don't. Friends and family is the first round, because that's what gives you that insurance money to go a little bit farther, and then you go to the sort of the angel venture capital round, then you go to the venture capital round, then you go to the private equity round, then you go to the institutional round, then you go to the public market round. And so I think that you got to step through all those processes. But part of that is building up that resilience, and building up that resilience is you got to have a little kitty. If you don't have a little kitty, you don't have something to fall back on. You're going to end up being desperate. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to invest for the future. That said, you don't want too much. Someone I talked to the other day told me that one of the biggest mistakes they made was getting some people on the team that were so rich, so well-to-do that they actually weren't hungry. And you want to have people that are hungry. And so there's a balance between having a little bit of money to fall back on so you can take some entrepreneurial risks, but someone that's got too much is not going to end up taking the risks that are important and work hard enough and be hungry enough to want something badly enough. And to be successful as an entrepreneur, you gotta have hunger, you gotta have desire, you gotta have want.
I think in any job you need to have that hunger. If you have
Sure.
that hunger, you're going to have that drive and you're going to push for it. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to be right back with Brian Crombie.
Losing weight and feeling fit is a simple 3-point process: diet, exercise, and a weight reduction supplement. VegiSlim by Greenish is a Health Canada approved weight management formula that's effective, safe, vegetarian, and natural to use. Combined with the right diet and exercise plan, VegiSlim will bring you back onto the path of healthy living.
Welcome back, everybody, and we are here with Brian Crombie giving some great advice for those out there that have aspiration to start your own business. So, Brian, during the break here, we were talking to my wonderful makeup artist, Mindy Baji, and she's a business owner herself, a makeup artist. What would be an advice for you for a makeup artist?
Advice for makeup artists? I have no idea.
From an entrepreneur perspective, not
entrepreneur
makeup,
standpoint,
not makeup. Let me rephrase.
Well, I think, a few things. So number one, I think just like we were talking earlier, you need to have a unique selling proposition. USP is what, the book Good Great talked about. And I think that, if there's a whole bunch of makeup artists that are exactly the same, you may end up being successful, but you're going to be a commodity and you're going to end up not getting a lot of money and you're not going to build a successful proposition in the end. So if you want to be a successful makeup artist, I think somehow you got to be unique. And so how can you be unique? Well, one example would be a makeup artist that does henna, as an example. That would be a little bit different. Or someone that does, kiss type facial things for Halloween or costumes or masquerade balls or whatever. So I think you got to have a specialty. You got to have something unique. You got to have something that makes you different, that people want to pay up and say, oh, you want to have black eyes or a henna or something or other. That's the person that you want to go to. The other thing that I found really helpful with people, whether it's in an entrepreneur or just in life, is a concept from Japan called ikigai. Are you familiar with ikigai at all? So it's fascinating. It's 3 circles. You think about 3 different circles of what you want to achieve in life, each answering a specific question. And so one is, what are you good at? So a makeup artist might be good at makeup. The second is, what are you passionate about? So even if you're good at it, if you're not passionate about it, you don't really love it, then it's not something that necessarily you want to do. The next one is, what does the world need more of? And so you got to ask yourself, does the world need more makeup artists, or are there enough makeup artists? And then the last one is, what can you get paid for? Because the reality in the end, to be sustainable, you got to get paid. Whether it's an entrepreneurial business or a waging business or even a not-for-profit, it's got to be sustainable. It's got to be able to get money. And the ikigai, or the key, is the intersection of those 4. So what are you good at? What are you passionate about? What does the world need more of? And what can you get paid for? And I think that that's good because, people say, do what you're passionate about. Well, I wanted to be a rock star. And when I was a teenager, I was actually the lead singer for a rock band, if you can believe it.
I did not know that. I learned something new.
But my voice is terrible. And so therefore, I wasn't good at it. No one in the world needed bad rock star musicians, and I was never going to get paid for it. I would have to pay for it constantly. And frankly, there's a bunch of people in the music business or artistic business or maybe even the makeup business, I don't know, that aren't very good at it, and or there's too many of them and the world doesn't need any more of them. And so you really got to think through that thing. And I know that there are some people that are so passionate about their art or they're passionate about their music, but they are struggling and getting paid for it, that they got to take a second job as a real estate agent or something like that to make ends meet and to be sustainable. But I do think, therefore, the key in the end is finding that intersection of those 4, whether it's as a makeup artist or as an entrepreneur, as an individual, and you got to apply that to what you do in life. It's got to apply that to your businesses. You got to apply that to where your vision is long term.
So what's your advice out there for the entrepreneur, how to utilize social media for marketing of their business? And there's different social media out there, right?
So I'm involved in politics a little bit, as you know,
Yes.
and the statistics on politics are fascinating. 75% of the people that vote because they got a recommendation from somebody. So you think about all the money that politicians spend on signs and advertising and whatever else they do, policy books and policy formulation. In the end, what's key is getting out to connect with people, not just because you're going to connect with them, but because they're going to connect with someone else. 75% get their vote based on a recommendation from someone they know. Now, signs to a certain extent, if they're on someone's property and the person knows that person on the property, effectively is a recommendation. But if there's more than one political party on the, or one candidate on the lawn, that recommendation has gone. And what does that mean? That means that social media effectively is just today's water cooler, right? Or today's coffee pot. And so what we're doing is we're making recommendations. We're making recommendations about what political party to vote for. We're recommending what restaurant to go to. We're recommending what makeup artist we should be using. And so therefore, you think about it. What that is a recommendation more than anything else. I think you'll have the right attitude. So do you want to show pictures? Yeah, I'll give you an example. I had this lady that came to me and asked if I could be her mentor, and she wanted to become a human resources professional. Sure, impressive young lady and great resume. And we happened to look at her Facebook account, and her Facebook account had a bunch of pictures of her out drinking, constantly out partying. So Facebook was completely inconsistent and was not recommending her as a human resource professional. And in today's environment, you're going to go check everyone's Facebook and everyone's Twitter and everyone's Instagram to see whether you want to recruit them in the recruiting process. So having a brand image on your social media that's consistent with who you are and what your vision is, I think is key. And then you want recommendations. So how do you get recommendations? You could ask for them. I don't think you're going to get a good recommendation if you can ask for them. But I think you create a conversation on social media. You show yourself doing good things. You're at places where you're recommending. Some of that's going to come back. And so therefore what you want to do is you want to establish that conversation in social media such that people end up saying nice things about Nadirah as an incredible TV announcer and a wonderful person. That's what you want to achieve. And you can't go out and ask for it, but it's something that you want to try to achieve.
It has to organically happen.
Yeah.
And you're very right, though. Your digital footprint is extremely important. And I don't think people are really paying attention to that. But even now, in day and age, when you apply to any job or do anything, everybody, what do? They Google you. That's the first thing that they do. They Google you, they check your Facebook, they check your Instagram, they check your Twitter to see, because that can tell a lot about a person.
No question.
So as an entrepreneur, anybody, they just need to be very careful whatever brand or image they're trying to portray, reflect that in their digital footprint.
I agree.
So the next thing that we would talk a lot about the do's and the don'ts. What will be your overall advice for somebody out there who's listening and trying to say, okay, I'm ready, I've heard those advice. What is the next key step? So one of the things that for me is that documentations. I realize people have a lot of ideas, but it's all up there. To be able to effectively communicate it to anybody, you have to be able to document it and share those. And what will be the other advice that you say, hey, I know you don't like doing this, especially the idea folks. What is it that you say, hey, but you must do that?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I used to work for the Walt Disney Company. And one of the things the Walt Disney Company did, and I think a lot of film people do, is they put together a storyboard. Why do they put together a storyboard? Because they want to know where they're going, right? They want to know, they have a vision of the creation that they want to create and how they're going to get there. And so I think that that's a good thing to apply in anything. I do some of these seminars on personal development called Ideal Me and the Power of Co that you mentioned. One of the things I talk about there when you talk about yourself is putting together a vision board. And so, a vision board is for your own personal self, where you want to be in the future. And let's, use the makeup artist as an example again. Makeup artists may want to be, doing makeup on Broadway or makeup in Hollywood. And so therefore a picture of them doing makeup on Broadway or in Hollywood might be something. Or they want to do Lady Gaga. And so therefore, actually applying the makeup to Lady Gaga might be a picture they want to do. They may want to pay off their mortgage because that's one of the objectives. So having a picture of the mortgage with a paid stamp on it is something that a buddy of mine has in the front page of his goal book, and that's kind of interesting. So I think you put together a vision board of what you want to achieve, and I think there's two things in that. Number one, it's inspirational and aspirational. So putting it on the wall and looking at it on a daily basis, so you know where you're going, what your objective is key. And then I think the second thing is it's the plan that you talk about, right? It's how you're going to get there. But if that's the vision, then you've got to put down what the mission is. So how am I actually, it's going to makeup school, it's doing so many, whatever you call it, makeup sessions a week. It's getting really good at the thing that I want to be unique in, whether it's henna or kiss or whatever it is, wedding photography, makeup or something like that. And then it's what am I gonna, what resources, what team am I gonna have? Well, if I've got a team, it's going to be that I'm going to be doing it for Tag TV, and so therefore I want on a regular basis make sure that not only am I doing it for weddings, but I'm doing it for performers
That's
on
right.
Tag TV or performers at the circus or Cirque du Soleil or whatever it is. So it's thinking through what those steps are to achieve it. Because if you don't, you're stuck in a rut.
So the storyboard that you just talked about is something that I call roadmap in my corporate world, right? And it's good to have a roadmap with different months. Like, for example, 2019 is around the corner. So have January to December to say, okay, this is what I need to make sure that I do each month, right? So that every time you have those goals set up, whether you wanted to put in pictures or words, you're now making those efforts
Okay,
working
well,
towards
now I think we're
those,
going to
right?
disagree. So I think roadmap or map is actually the wrong analogy, and I'll give you...
Really?
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, we will probably disagree on that just because...
So let's say my vision is I want to go to New York.
Okay.
Okay? I don't want to have a roadmap of exactly how I'm going to get to New York by itself. Okay? What I want to do is my vision board is New York. And it's going to be a picture of New York, or it's going to be, the idea that I'm going to spend the weekend in New York, or whatever it is, right? The map is how I get there, but the reality is there's going to be, I'm going to take the New York State Thruway or something like that. There's going to be different things that are going to happen along the way, and I want to be open to those different things that are going to be happening on the way. And unlike a trip, which is maybe easier to plan out, there's going to be stuff that happens that's going to set me off course, because there is going to be an earthquake on this next year's travel, or the equivalent of something like that, right? It's a competitor that comes along, or it's lack of sales that occur, or it's a lack of profitability, or it's a boss that is more demanding, or all the different things that happen. So you got to know where you're going at the end, going to New York, and you got to have an idea, which is the roadmap of how you're going to get there. But you got to be open to the changes that occur along the way. So don't get just wedded to the roadmap. Get wedded to the vision of where you're going to go, and use the roadmap as the strategy and the tactics to get there.
How about
so it's not the
combining
roadmap.
the two?
No, and that's what I'm saying.
Overlapping the roadmap with your vision. I want to be in New York, and then there's so many things that happen.
Okay, so
right?
so use my analogy again. We're going to New York. New York is the vision. Actually, that's not even true, right? So the vision is a wonderful weekend in Times Square and going to the theater in New York. So that's the vision. Something that gets you excited about what it is that you want to achieve, right? That's the vision. The mission would be, I'm going to use a car, or I'm going to use a plane, or I'm going to, whatever it is. The mission is, the way that I'm going to do it. The tactics or the strategy is your roadmap. So I do think the roadmap is key, but it's not as important as the vision or the mission. Because in life, you'll always have mishaps, you'll always have courage, you'll always have down problems. I've got this great map that I show that people, I think, really resonate, which is most people think a plan is like that. No, a plan is like, this, or the path to success. It's more like a plate of spaghetti than it is a straight line. And so therefore what you need is the resilience and the tenacity and the unique selling proposition, and all those things that are going to get you through all of that morass to get that vision in the end. And you'll give up if you don't have that vision in front of you. And
I think in this segment, every viewers that are watching know they need to have their vision. Have your vision board along with your roadmap, right? On there, so that you can, and I believe in vision board. I have to say, I do believe in vision board, and I think that's super important. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Losing weight and feeling fit is a simple 3-point process: diet, exercise, and a weight reduction supplement. VegiSlim by Greenish is a Health Canada approved weight management formula that's effective, safe, vegetarian, and natural to use. Combined with the right diet and exercise plan, VegiSlim will bring you back onto the path of healthy living.
Welcome back, everybody. We are here with Brian Crombie. Brian, thank you so much for all these very educational, great advice for the entrepreneurs. Yes. What I want to do is maybe ask you, what's next for Brian Crombie?
Oh, that's a good question. So my vision is that I want to finish my doctorate in business, so my DBA. I think I told you what I did is I started out studying economic development and entrepreneurship, and I really, as I read a lot of the literature, became convinced that social capital is the key. And I've done a ton of research in that area, and I've interviewed a bunch of people, and I've written most of the thesis, haven't finished it yet. But I think I've got a message. I've got something that I want to convey to people. And so my vision is that I want to finish my thesis, get my doctorate, do a TED Talk on the topic of community power of the co, and then go out and evangelize it, frankly, to make sure that the message is out there, which is, I think, all about the power of the team, the power of people, the power of community, and how that can end up making you far more successful than if you're just thinking about yourself.
Okay. Just to get a little bit on the front side of Brian Crombie, what does Brian do for fun?
Well, I haven't had a lot of time for fun lately, so I'm, as you mentioned, I'm the acting chief financial officer for the Ottawa Senators, and that actually has been an interesting project because I get to go to a couple of hockey games, and I'm a real hockey fan, and so I've been entertaining a bunch of bankers and real estate development people and things like that at hockey games, which is good. I used to be president of the Mississauga Arts Council, and I'm very interested in arts and entertainment and the business side of arts and entertainment, given that I told you I dreamt of being a rock star. I wasn't going to do that, and so therefore being on the business side of entertainment was something that I wanted to achieve. And that's been really enjoyable because number one, I go to, and number two, I get invited to a whole bunch of CD launches and artist exhibits and galleries and whatnot, and so I really have had an opportunity to go to all those events, to meet all those interesting people, and then, you know, back to social media, I try to promote them all, and some of them have been kind enough to promote me back again, and so that's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed that. And then I think finally, you know, politics is a passion of mine, and I'm chair of Transit Alliance, which is a civic advocacy organization that is spurring transit investment and citizen interest in and involvement in and hopefully protection of the investment in transit. And that's my political issue. My kids joke at me all the time, Dad, you're passionate about infrastructure, but I am. I'm passionate about infrastructure because I think infrastructure is the roadmap, to go back to our last conversation, about how people get around and how you build great cities. And so that's something that I'm really quite excited about. And I spend a lot of volunteer time in the arts and in transit.
And I have one last big question for you. What's on your vision board?
So it's me doing a TED Talk on my Community Power Co. I've got a picture of myself doing that TED Talk. If you go to my Facebook today, you'll see that my profile picture is a picture of me at a TEDx, and that was good, but I want more. I want to do the TED Talk. And it is having people think of me as someone that has really conveyed an important message on social capital, authentic long-term relationships with people, compassion. I think we need to have more empathy and compassion for other people, even in a business setting. And it's interesting, so that a leader that is male that shows compassion is seen as stronger. One of the negatives in our society is a female that shows compassion isn't not necessarily seen as stronger. But I really want to convey to people that leaders don't need to be arrogant, whatever people. You know, leaders can and should be empathetic, compassionate people that build long-term relationships with people, and that's how you build the best team, and you end up having the best culture, and in the end, the best result. And that's a message that I want to get out there to the people.
And you're right about the comment regarding female, but that's another half-hour show. You'll have to come back for that.
I look forward to it.
Yes. But thank you so much for coming today. Really appreciate all your advice. And for those of you out there, if you want more information about Brian, go check out his website at briancrombie.ca. I want to say special thank you to my fashion stylist, Susie Tomasi, and a portion of her sales proceeds goes to the women's shelter, and her website is susieqjewels.com. And my wonderful makeup artist, Mindy Bargy. Thank you so much for wonderful makeup. And also please follow me on Instagram and check out my website, Nadirah.ca, and subscribe to TAC TV. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Until next time.